Hi, this is Penny Kelly, and this meditation, titled Radiation, Your Body, and Power, is the first in a series of meditations designed to heal the Pacific Ocean of the effects of radiation from the Fukushima nuclear disaster. A brave soul named Walter Mora felt he had to do something, so he started inviting people to come together in KINS groups to talk about what we might do to help. And then these meditations arose out of those meetings. So, since we are working with radiation, we are going to do a little imagery that both relaxes and begins teaching about radiation, your body, your consciousness, and your own personal power. Because we will use these tools again and again throughout this series of meditations. So, begin by getting comfortable. Either sit or lay down somewhere. Don't fall asleep. And then take 3 really deep breaths. These are full body breaths in which you breathe in and feel that breath throughout your body. In your chest, in your belly, in your hips, your thighs, your legs, your ankles, all the way to the tips of your toes. And don't forget your arms and your hands and your fingertips. And then breathe out completely until you're empty. And when you're completely empty, breathe in a second time. Feel your entire body and even feel your low back expand and your armpits. And then let that out completely. And then a third breath all the way through you. Through your spine, through your knees, your teeth, and your toes. And then breathe out. And now just breathe in your normal way. And remain relaxed but aware. And then imagine that you are separating yourself from your body and you're standing outside of yourself as if you were another person looking at your body. And you're seeing that body as part of the whole reality to see how it's all constructed. Now, of course, you're going to see that you have a head and a trunk and some arms and legs, just like all of the other humans on the planet. But then, imagine that you are entering an altered state of consciousness. And in this state, you can see much more than usual. You can see energy and atoms, and all sorts of frequencies and particles. And notice that you can sort of zoom out to get a broader picture of your body and the reality. And when you do, you see that your body is sitting or lying in the middle of what appears to be a huge ocean of energies characterized by millions of particles and waves of frequency. And those frequencies are moving in all directions. Some are going up, some down, some back and forth, some are in whirlpools and vortices, and then there are others that seem to move right through. In fact, the body appears to be part of this huge ocean, and there's no boundaries between you and it. In fact, in the spot where your body is, just see an increase in the density of the waves. And be aware that you call this area yourself. So realize that you are really just a location in the ocean of frequencies, and that your name is your address in this eternal ocean, and your reason for being is at least to enjoy whatever's possible with these frequencies and learn to maintain your location. So for just a moment then, zoom in to look at the detail of some of these frequency waves. Notice that each one has a particle riding the wave, just like a guy on a surfboard rides the waves in the ocean. And as you look at the place where your frequencies are most concentrated, notice that what you have always thought of as a body looks more like a basket woven out of frequencies with all sorts of particles riding or just even moving among them. For a moment, become aware of the intense sound of buzzing or humming created by all these frequencies and all that motion. And then listen a little closer. Notice that all of those particles riding those waves of frequency are communicating. They're communicating with one another, sharing who they are, what they do best, and they report any changes in their motion. And realize that this mass of particles is deeply alive and aware of itself as a unique and individual region. Realize that all those particles seem to be wired to cooperate. And in fact, the truth is they live to cooperate with one another just for the joy of creating new patterns. Now, get a little closer and examine the frequencies a little more and see how close-knit some of them are. It's almost like a finely woven fabric. And realize that we call this fabric tissue. And then focus even more deeply on the individual particles riding the waves within your system. And notice that in addition to those particles, there are others that seem to arrive at the location of your body as if traveling in from somewhere. And see that some of these particles are bigger than others, so they're different sizes, and they're different colors. Some are red, some are blue, some are green. And notice that when you look at them directly, they seem to know that someone's looking at them, and they behave a little differently. Sometimes slowing down, sometimes speeding up. So trace these arrivals that arrive at your body back in the direction they came from. And when you do, you'll notice that they're mostly coming from the earth itself. So kneel down or bend over so that you are close to the earth and can get a better look at these red, blue, and green particles. They come out of rocks a lot of times. And notice that some of them look like big crumbs made of a bunch of red and blue particles just kind of stuck together. And that there's a lot of really, really tiny green particles sort of whirling around among these red and blue crumbs. And as you observe, notice that all of a sudden there's a surge of energy, almost like an electric current along the surface of the earth. And a small piece of one of those crumbs breaks away from the larger crumb and kind of goes lumbering off into space like a group of fat little old ladies dressed in red and blue, chattering away among themselves and failing to watch where they're going. These are alpha particles, and what you have just witnessed is called radiation. We have radiation when one or more particles breaks away from their group. So these alpha ladies bump into all sorts of other particles. They cause all kinds of disruption until they finally hit the wall of a body and are mostly stopped because they don't have enough oomph to go any further. And when they do get through the wall and into the body, they cause more disruption, and their license to drive is quickly taken away by the body itself. They are put into jail in the area of the thyroid, or maybe the liver, or deep in the bones even. When this happens, the body will feel a general irritation with the alpha ladies, and you'll need to take time to heal, to rest, and to clean up the mess they made and restore the systems that were disrupted. So then as you stand there, you're still looking toward the earth, watching, wondering what caused these ladies to break away. notice that a few of the green particles just go whizzing past your nose in a great big hurry, and then a few more, and then even more. They're like teenagers in a hot car. These beta boys drive as if they're the only ones on the road. So you watch them flying by, and you're trying to duck and avoid collisions, but they don't care what happens or who has to pay for the damage they might cause. So they go zipping through you, knocking your particles helter-skelter. It's kind of like a bowling ball hitting pins at the end of the alley, sending those pins flying in every direction. So the particles and cells that have been hit by these bad boys go flying themselves and hit even more cells, and now there's a total trail of destruction and a real mess to clean up. Some cells are dead, some are weeping, some are dysfunctional to the point of uselessness, and you are very uncomfortable. When this happens, you will need to rest, to detox incredible amounts of dead material, and to rebuild. So very carefully you put yourself back together, and you're doing well. And then one day, curious once again about what you saw while examining those finely woven frequencies that comprised your energy body, you return to that altered state to take another look and see what else you might learn. And while you're in that state, you hear a distant rumble and you feel the whole ocean of frequencies shake. It's like a giant shiver. And then you notice a flash of light that seems to come from behind you. You turn to look and to see what's going on, and you see a tsunami of frequency waves coming toward you like a giant wall of water headed your way. These are gamma waves, and they have enormous power. At that instant, you remember that earlier, the first time when you were first looking at yourself in the ocean of frequencies, there was no boundary between it and you. You were just a location where a group of frequencies were a little more compact, and there was a constant buzz of communication. And so now, almost like a reflex from deep within, you realize that you are the waves coming at you. And with great power, born partly of alarm, partly of excitement, partly of intense will, you command the frequencies coming at you to do no harm. Because of your intense emotions at that moment, your command goes out with immense power. And because all things are alive and all things are communicating, your command is heard and acknowledged instantly. Because of the speed with which the gamma waves are moving, they are upon you before you have time to move. But deep within the center of your own energy matrix, you have an unassailable knowing that you will be just fine. So the gamma waves slide past, and you remain unharmed. Greatly relieved, you take a deep breath and you stop to look around. To your dismay, you see that others did not have the same presence of mind that you did. The gamma waves hit them and simply erased their frequencies from which their particles arose. Everything is melted. It's gone. The locations where individuals and houses or cars or trees once stood are now completely empty. You stand quietly, remembering each of these friendly forms, and you are aware that something just happened that you need to think about. You are alive and intact. You have inadvertently discovered some very important things about radiation, consciousness, and material bodies. These are things you may have suspected but never thought about in quite this way before. Things like there is no boundary between yourself and the great ocean of frequencies. Or like all of the frequencies and particles are communicating constantly. That everything is wired to cooperate. But most of all, that you have immense power at your fingertips. Or should we say, in your consciousness. You have not just discovered these things, you have used them. You've made them work. So thinking about the fact that you're made of frequencies and particles, and all things are communicating, you experiment a little further. You decide to ask the frequencies to reassemble those you loved and who loved you. So you now recall them, literally calling them back into existence. And this remembering allows them to reassemble themselves and to pull the members of themselves, their pieces and parts, back together to become a living being once again. As you go through the days, helping to recall, rebuild, renew, you are ever so grateful for having experienced radiation. It has brought out your power and a new understanding. And slowly you realize that you are different because of it. It has affected you. It's changed you. And you have not been harmed. You realize that you have adapted in subtle ways and that all is well. So now once again, see your own body as a collection of frequencies and particles, and watch it slowly fill in with matter to become the physical body you've always known. And then gently return your attention to that physical body. And as you do so, before we leave this, bless that great ocean of life and thank it from the core of your being. And then return your attention to the location you know as yourself. So become aware of the everyday reality around you, the one you run around in, laugh in, work in. And then give yourself directions to remain well and to remain deeply aware. And stretch. Take a moment to reconvene yourself. And when you're ready, open your eyes and return to daily life. No hurry. Take your time.